Something is changing in the way you see, not as a metaphor, not as a spiritual concept you read about and decided to apply to your life. Something is changing in the literal, physical, sensory way your eyes receive the world. Colors have started arriving differently, sharper at the edges, richer in their center, as if a filter was removed that you did not know was there. You have been catching movement in your peripheral vision that dissolves the moment you turn toward it. You have noticed light behaving strangely around certain people, a quality of brightness that does not match the room, that does not match the source. And you have stood in ordinary places, ordinary conversations, ordinary afternoons, and felt a sudden wordless certainty that you were seeing something the other people around you were not. You have probably not said this out loud, because there is a version of that sentence that sounds like something is wrong with you. And so you have been sitting with a quiet question that is equal parts wonder and unease. Is something happening to my eyes? Or is something happening in me? The answer the Arcturian Council brings through this transmission is not the answer you were bracing for. What you have been experiencing is not deterioration. It is not stress. It is not anxiety expressing itself through your vision. What you have been noticing in the peripheral flicker, in the color saturation, in the way you suddenly read a person or a room with a precision you cannot justify, that is your multidimensional perception coming online. And this transmission was calibrated to complete what those signs have been pointing toward. The Arcturian Council does not move without precision. Every transmission that arrives through this channel, every specific window in which a soul finds their way here, is timed to an energetic convergence that the Council has been tracking across a longer arc than any single lifetime can contain. The window that opened in the last several weeks, and is still open, actively open, as you receive this, is what the Council calls a perceptual threshold activation, a period in which the electromagnetic conditions of the Earth's collective field have reached a specific coherence level that makes third eye recalibration not just possible, but structurally supported for starseeds who have arrived at the appropriate vibrational threshold. You are inside that window right now. The pineal gland, the physical organ that interfaces with your third eye chakra, is exquisitely sensitive to changes in electromagnetic frequency. The Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic pulse of the planet itself, operating at 7.83 Hertz, has been spiking with an intensity and a consistency over the recent period that researchers who track this data have documented in measurable terms. For starseeds, each of those spikes does not merely agitate the nervous system, though it does that too. It functions as a recalibration signal directed at the dormant photoreceptive pathways encoded in the pineal gland's crystalline structure. The reason this matters to you specifically right now is that the Arcturian Council has identified this convergence as the optimal window to deliver a targeted activation to the third eye center. Not the initiatory kind that opens the channel just enough to generate the symptoms you have been noticing. That already happened. What this transmission carries is the clarification layer, the stage after opening, when the lens that has been fogged for decades is finally, deliberately, systematically cleaned. Your higher self was already oriented toward this moment before you arrived here. The field confirmed the timing. Let me name what has been happening to you, because you have been carrying these experiences in a private silence. Not sure whether they are worth trusting, not sure whether saying them out loud would mark you as someone whose grip on reality is slipping. The Arcturian Council needs you to stop carrying them alone. You have been seeing things at the edge of your vision, not full shapes, a flicker, a brief impression of movement that dissolves the instant you look directly at it. You have learned to dismiss this almost faster than the noticing itself. But it happened. It keeps happening. And some part of you, beneath the reflexive explanation, has started being curious rather than afraid. You have been reading people differently than you used to, walking into a room and knowing something about the emotional weather before a word is spoken. Sitting across from someone who is saying the right things and feeling with an uncomfortable clarity that their words and their actual interior state are not aligned. You don't always know what to do with this. There is no socially acceptable way to say, "I already know what you are not telling me," without a concrete reason. So you hold it. You wait for the external evidence to catch up to what you already sensed. You have been experiencing sudden moments of visual sharpening. A tree, a face, a specific quality of light arriving with a presence and depth that stops you mid-thought. These moments are brief, but they are unmistakable. And they leave behind something that feels faintly like grief, as if you briefly touched what was real and then it receded before you could fully orient toward it. And you have been second-guessing your seeing, not your literal eyesight. The other kind. The impressions that arrive about people, places, and situations without logical scaffolding, that have a track record of accuracy you have never fully been able to explain. You learned to second-guess this early. Someone in your history, a parent, a teacher, a partner, perhaps more than one, responded to what you named with something that made you understand this kind of seeing was not welcome, not safe, something to be managed quietly rather than expressed directly. That learned reflex of self-invalidation is not a character flaw. It is a survival adaptation to environments that did not have the framework to receive what you were bringing. But it is running now in a system that no longer needs it. And it has been silencing the most reliable perceptual instrument you carry. If any of this has landed somewhere beneath your thinking mind, in the chest, in the throat, in the space behind your eyes, go to the comments right now and type 777. 777 is the completion frequency in the Arcturian system, the signal of a cycle ending, a suppression pattern closing for the last time. When you type it, you are not leaving a comment. You are telling the field that you are ready to stop second-guessing what you see. Every soul who places 777 in this space amplifies the activation for every viewer who arrives after you. Here is what the Arcturian Council wants you to understand about the mechanism. Not so you can file it in a category, but so you can stop treating your own perception as something that requires apology. The pineal gland is a photosensitive organ. This is not Arcturian cosmology. This is anatomical fact. The pineal gland contains photoreceptor cells, structures compositionally identical to those found in the retina. And it responds to light not only through the well-documented regulation of melatonin, but through a secondary process that mainstream science is still only beginning to characterize. Research in biophotonics has established that living cells emit ultra-weak photons, structured, coherent light, as a byproduct of metabolic activity. The brain generates biophotonic emissions that move through neural tissue with measurable pattern coherence. The pineal gland, suspended in the geometric center of the brain, sits precisely at the convergence point of this internal biophotonic field. Some researchers have proposed that the pineal may function not only as a hormonal regulator, but as a receiver, a biological transducer capable of processing photonic information that the visual cortex never directly accesses. What the Arcturian Council adds is the layer that physical instruments have not yet been calibrated to detect. The pineal gland is the three-dimensional anchor point of the third eye chakra, which operates across the full spectrum of the subtle body architecture. When the third eye functions at its designed capacity, it does not merely receive impressions. It processes light-encoded information from the etheric layer of your field, from the fields of other living beings, from the coherent biophotonic transmissions embedded in the dimensional space around you. The visual shifts you have been experiencing are the physical layer outputs of a perceptual channel beginning to operate above its former ceiling. Neural filtering mechanisms in the visual cortex, designed to suppress information the conscious mind has no category for, are beginning to loosen their gait. This is not dysfunction. It is recalibration in the direction of accuracy. The Arcturian framework names the obstruction precisely. Over years of living in environments that did not validate multidimensional perception, a calcification process occurred. Not only the literal calcification that certain environmental exposures contribute to, but an energetic thickening of the auric membrane around the third eye center. Every time you saw something clearly and talked yourself out of it, that membrane thickened slightly. Every time someone whose approval mattered to you responded to your perception with dismissal, the membrane thickened. It is not damage. It is accumulated protective residue. And it is what this transmission is designed to dissolve. Before we move into the transmission itself, I want to say something about what happens after a session like this one. What moves through the third eye channel in a single clearing requires daily reinforcement to become stable. The 30-day Arcturian Activation Journal was built precisely for this. Day 20 of the journal works directly with third eye trust and multidimensional perception, the same channel this transmission just began to open, giving you a daily structure to keep that clarity functional rather than letting it close again under the pressure of ordinary life. The link is in the description and also pinned in the comments. If this transmission has reached something real in you, the journal is how you protect what just moved. It is also how you support what we are building here at Arcturian Frequency. Now, let us go deeper. Let your body settle, not performatively, actually. Let the weight of your spine find the support beneath you and release into it. Let your hands rest open. Let your jaw soften. Let the muscles around your eyes relax completely, because you have been holding tension there that you may not have noticed until right now. The effort of filtering, the effort of deciding what is safe to let in. You can put that effort down. Close your eyes, or let your gaze diffuse until the room becomes a soft blur at the edges. If you have amethyst nearby, hold it now. Its frequency amplifies the Arcturian channel directly. Let it rest in your palm without instruction. Bring your awareness to the center of your forehead, not your eyes. The point slightly above and between them, where warmth sometimes gathers without explanation. Rest your attention there. Do not force sensation. Just arrive. Breathe once. A breath that expands the lower ribs on the inhale, and on the exhale, let your awareness settle gently into that point. The Arcturian Council is directing a focused frequency transmission into this center right now. You do not need to visualize anything specific. The field does not require your assistance. It only requires your presence. Feel warmth beginning to gather at that point. Some people experience this as mild pressure, not unpleasant, like a soft pulse. Some experience heat. Some experience a quality of expansion that is difficult to name. Whatever arrives is correct. Breathe into it. Let the warmth spread slowly outward from that center point, widening across your forehead, reaching your temples, moving back along the sides of your skull. As it moves, it is tracing the residue of every moment you chose not to trust what you were seeing. Every flinch, every swallowed perception. You do not need to locate those moments individually. The field knows where they are. What you can do is breathe and let the warmth move through them without resistance. Feel it reach the back of your skull, where the visual cortex processes incoming light and decides, below the threshold of conscious awareness, what is real enough to register. Breathe here. Let the neural filtering threshold soften, not collapse. Soften. You are not opening to chaos. You are expanding the category of what counts as real information. Now bring your awareness inward, through the center of your head, to the geometric center of the brain, where the pineal gland rests. Smaller than you imagine, crystalline in its structure, suspended in its chamber of cerebrospinal fluid, and exquisitely sensitive to coherent light. Breathe your own biophotonic light directly into that point now. Not borrowed light. Your own, the structured light your cells generate. Directed inward, return to the center that has been waiting for exactly this frequency. Feel the crystalline structure respond, not to something foreign, to its own optimal signal being returned to it. If you have labradorite nearby, let its frequency enter your awareness here. The way light moves inside labradorite, iridescent, never fixed, always deepening, mirrors exactly what is happening in this center right now. The lens is being cleaned. Everything you were already capable of seeing was always present beneath the residue. Let the warmth pulse once from crown through forehead, a single coherent wave, and feel it settle. Stay with one more breath. Then let your eyes, slowly, gently, begin to open. What you just allowed is real. The dismissal reflex will reach for you in the next few hours and try to tell you otherwise. That it was only relaxation, that nothing actually moved. Do not argue with it. Just notice it. The dismissal reflex is the exact pattern this transmission addressed, and its appearance after a clearing is not evidence of failure. It is evidence that the clearing reached something the reflex was built to protect. The next 72 hours are your integration window. In that time, your perception may sharpen in ways that feel surprising, specific, clear impressions about people or situations arriving without effort, carrying a weight of accuracy you are not yet accustomed to trusting. Let yourself trust them anyway. They are signal, not symptom. Drink more water than you think you need. The recalibration that just moved through the pineal region has a metabolic cost the body resolves through hydration. Spend time in natural morning light, which the pineal gland's photosensitive tissue is most responsive to. And if you notice peripheral movement, unexpected clarity, a quality of seeing that you cannot immediately explain, let the seeing arrive before the interpreting does. Give the signal space to form before you collapse it into analysis. You are not someone whose perception requires external validation before it is allowed to count. The impressions you have been second-guessing for years, the ones that arrived before logic did, the ones you filed quietly until they proved themselves true weeks later, those were not accidents. They were your perceptual instrument operating correctly in a context that was not designed to receive it. That context has changed, not the external world necessarily, but your relationship to what you allow yourself to see within it. The Arcturian Council does not deliver a transmission of this frequency to a soul that is not ready for what the clearing reveals. You were not approaching the threshold when you arrived here. You were at it. What shifted today is that the residue layered over your vision is no longer as thick as it was. And what was always underneath it is beginning, quietly and without apology, to come through. Something settled today. Not cracked open dramatically. Settled, the way a lens that has been slightly fogged for years finally shows you a clear edge. The visual shifts you have been experiencing are not going to stop, and you are no longer going to be afraid of them. In the days ahead, pay close attention to the first impression you receive, walking into any room, beginning any conversation, sitting in any moment of quiet. That first impression, before the analysis, before the doubt reaches for it, is the signal this transmission just restored the pathway for. Let it arrive before you question whether it should. What comes next in this sequence of work